Let's begin by welcoming our panel. Gary?
Thank you very much, Scott. And I have to say, it has been such a pleasure to work with the Emeritus Center, and especially with Scott. I mean, this guy is like a big brother. He's just so patient and easy to work with. That this program came about very, very quickly. I just want to also thank Chris for driving all the way out here from central New York. Chris is also a dairy farmer. The only thing more difficult than dairy farming, I think, is what Michael Ramella does, which is especially to be responsible for serving about 11,000 meals a day on our campuses. He told me that, put it all together, he's serving over 2 million meals a year. I think that's harder than dairy farming, Chris.
Chance.
I'm in a tree.
Yeah. So I think we've got an excellent panel, and I'm very in awe to be part of it. And I'll get right to what I'd like to talk about, and that's our food system. Our food system, of course, any food system is a reflection of what consumers want their food system to be. What you want is what I will grow for you as a farmer. And so what do consumers want? And this comes from a lot of data. Cheap food. Consumers want cheap food. And the industry, large corporations, are more than happy to deliver that as processed products full of sugars, salt, and saturated fats, things we're wired to overindulge in. And so that's what cheap food is about. But cheap food is expensive. It's full of empty calories. It causes malnourishment. I don't think anybody in this room is undernourished, but I bet some of us are malnourished. It's responsible for the Western disease complex, a whole complex of diseases that are caused by our food, by our diets. These include hypertension, stroke, cardiovascular disease, several kinds of cancers. There are diseases associated with chemical pesticides that are in our food, causing autism and kidney failure, or at least linked to autism and kidney failure, and irritable bowel syndrome, and several kinds of cancers. Our food system is responsible in part for the rise of antibiotic-resistant bacteria and fungi. And most of our food, therefore, is not safe. If we look at the amount of E. coli 0157H7, that's the bacterium that can kill you in 12 days. It destroys your kidneys. A pastured cow has very little E. coli 0157H7 in its system. But as you add grain, which the industry does, because grain is high energy food, and high energy food fast grows those animals so you can get them off the farm and get them into the market as cheap food. That grain causes an increase. It acidifies the rumen, and it causes an increase in this acidophilic, acid-loving bacterium that lives in the animal and that can kill you. As I said, antibiotic-resistant microbes evolved in part in overcrowded hog barns, and have never been documented in hog populations that live on pasture. Toxic residues are in full swing in our food supply. Glyphosate, the world's #1 herbicide, is present in 90% of our crops and is linked to 21 different human morbidities. In 2023, not surprisingly, there's no data yet for 2024, but there were 312 food recalls, mostly from farms operated or contracted from large corporations. Over 29,000 people were sickened by tainted food. over 7,000 people were hospitalized and 177 people died from eating food, from the American food system. Most of our food is also not nutritious. In the last 60 years, there's been an alarming decline in food quality and nutritionally essential minerals. The causes of the decline in the nutritional quality of our food include synthetic nutrient application, the use of high-yielding varieties, and a shift from natural farming to chemical farming. And that was a paper published in Foods, which is a respected journal. So, long answer short, the American food system is a mess, but it doesn't have to be that way for you. Okay, and the reason is in part due to this person. His name is Robert Rodale. He founded one of the most respected agricultural research institutions in the world, and he coined the phrase regenerative organic agriculture. Regenerative organic agriculture provides a path to a healthy diet. It focuses on restoring soil health and food quality by following ecological and ethical principles. And there's I could do a whole lecture on those principles, but I would just say that although regenerative organic agriculture was the term he coined, in actuality, all certified organic farmers are practicing regenerative agriculture, but not all regenerative agriculture farmers are certified organic, but they're still using principles based on regenerative practices. Okay, and I don't really need to go much beyond that. The question is, are regeneratively produced crops nutritionally superior to conventionally produced crops? And that turns out to be a tough one to answer, at least in the literature. There is not yet a clear answer, although Chris may provide more data on this. But two people that I know pretty well, Dave Montgomery and Ann Bickley of the University of Washington in Seattle, took up that question. And Dave, by the way, is a MacArthur Genius Fellow. And they asked what do we know about organic versus conventional crop nutritional quality? And what they learned is, first of all, organic soils tend to be healthier because organic soils tend to fertilize the microbiome, the soil microbiome, the microbes that live in the soils. These microbes provide high levels of flavor chemicals and antioxidants, and there are no pesticide residues in the food they produce. So the short answer is organic crops are more flavorful, they're more full of antioxidants, and they have fewer pesticide or no pesticide residues than when compared with conventional crops, which due to tilling, that is plowing, the use of inputs, chemicals, destroys soil structure, destroys the microbiome in the soil, and reduces the levels of flavor chemicals and antioxidants in the crops. Obviously, when you're using inputs, you're going to have pesticide residues. What they did notice was that there are generally larger yields on conventional or industrial farms than in organic farms. The Rodale Institute has data that contradicts that, though. According to the Rodale Institute, there's no difference. The answer is clearer with meat and eggs. Regeneratively produced beef has higher levels of beta carotene, an antioxidant, and vitamins, and a healthier lipid profile than industrial beef. And eggs from pastured chickens exceeds the USDA nutritional standard in every category. So, of course, the big question is, how much does it cost? It costs a lot. It's more expensive for me to buy good food. But Michael Pollan, the author of the best-selling Omnivore's Dilemma, had a response to that. He said, we place a higher priority on our consumer electronics than we do on our food. And Joel Salatin, a farmer, sort of an iconic sustainable farmer in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia is even a little more on our faces. He says, if you think my food is expensive, check out the price of cancer. So, and especially for the young people in the room, it's really important. I have a friend named Michael Finkelstein. He's an MD. He was director of the Northern Westchester Medical Center for many years, and he became a holistic or integrative medical doctor. He wrote a book called Slow Medicine, and he actually visited my students here at UAlbany, and he said to them, decisions you make about what you eat now will determine your health 20 years from now. And that's a very important thing to think about when we think about the cost of our food. So the fact is that if you want it, especially here, we can get great food. And what I'm going to do is, this is a list of a whole bunch of places where you can get great food, and including the NOFA New York, Northeast Organic Farming Association, New York, of organic farms, where you can get the food directly from the farms or from farmers markets that they sell at, and the National Farmers Market Directory. So at this point, I'll put this up after the speakers speak while we're discussing things. So if you want to, you can write it down. But most importantly, the best way to get good food is to talk to a farmer. How do I get rid of this? I got it. Brain doesn't work. Chris.
And slow part.
Sorry.
Well, you got time left, huh?
I do. Forgot to turn it on.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it. Wow. Well, Gary just hit a bunch of different stuff that I was also going to talk about. So I'll just add some other stuff. No, it's fine. It's good. No, it's out there. I'm sure most folks in this room know a lot of these things too. So benefits of organically grown food and why you should care. All right, so I'm sure everybody's seen this quote. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. We have come so far from this statement in our food system. We have an industrial food system. We don't have a local food system. We have little parts here and there across the country with that. But in general, we have an industrial food system. And unfortunately, close to 75% of the land in this country is in the commodity system. It grows corn and soy, wheat, cotton, other crops like that, all commodity crops, mostly row crops that can then go into the industrial corporate system, be milled, parts are taken apart, and they put them into all kinds of different products. And so we're not actually eating the corn that is grown in the Midwest. Sandy was just telling me he took a trip across the country. Sure, you saw a lot of corn and soybeans. And we don't eat that. We eat the products of that. And we need to change that if we are actually going to survive as a species. We really need to get back to our food being our medicine. It's interesting that you put that quote up from Joel Salatin, because a sick body will always cost more than a healthy body. He's right. The cost of cancer is ridiculous. We eat too much processed food in this country. In general, I'm not saying everybody does, but in general, most folks eat just too much processed food. And the other thing that's kind of sad to me, I used to have, so 20 years ago, I had a vegetable CSA, and also I started to mesh meat and CSA also. And I got tired of being a salesman all the time, having to try and sell my product. This is before local food was really growing. It was just starting, and honestly, I got burnt out from direct marketing. But the one thing that frustrated me the most was hearing probably 50% of our CSA members saying they weren't eating all the food.
Excuse me, what's the CSA?
Community supported agriculture,
Thank you.
folks buy a share. It's a little bit different system today. I had the old school system where you got a box of vegetables every week. And what folks were telling me was, especially the younger folks, they wanted to go out to have dinner with their friends 2, 3, 4 nights a week, and they didn't cook at home. And I was like, what are we doing? That's really expensive. My wife and I went out the other night to a place in Oneonta, chef owned, great food, locally sourced foods. For the two of us, $140. That's why we don't do it very often. And my wife and I cook very well. So, and we have great ingredients. Oh, something moved on me. All right, so why buy certified organic? All right, when farms are certified, there is a set of standards that they have to meet in order to get their certificate. And you have to think about your soil health, what's your crop rotation, how do you take care of your animals? There's an animal humanity section of that also. But the biggest thing is, and Gary mentioned it, is that we don't use synthetic pesticides or fungicides or herbicides. So the produce that you're buying, whether that's veggies, meat, eggs, milk, and packaged foods, they meet these standards on the farm and in the processing, because if the product is certified organic and it's not coming off a farm, it also has a set of standards that has to meet. And so each of these facilities are inspected yearly. And the second part of this is, it shows that farmers are practicing these things with a yearly inspection. I haven't had mine. I will have my inspection December 11th, and we will go through all of my paperwork, my pasture records, my animal list, where I bought my feed, what feed I made, what field did it come from, what minerals did I feed, did I have to treat any animals? Thankfully, we don't treat our animals with antibiotics. We've got a pretty good system going on our farm. In the past, I have had some cases of mastitis that got really bad. We were able to clean them up by putting a calf back on them.
Wow.
And they basically nurse 8 to 10 times a day and suck all the nasty stuff out. That's right. Go for the calf.
Tough calf.
Tough calf. Exactly. They're usually older. They're not a week old. But the other thing too is I'm going to skip one slide, well, 2 slides, and I'll come back to the one. So this label right here, I'm sure folks have seen this. That label is recognized around the world, not just in the United States. And when you see that label, you know that the farm or the product has gone through a pretty rigorous process to get on the shelf. Okay, so I mentioned no synthetic fertilizers, fungicides, herbicides, or pesticides. We're not allowed to use them. We also don't have GMOs, genetically engineered or genetically modified organisms, on our farms. So we have to buy certified organic seed. If we can't find certified organic seed, there's a small window of seeds that you can buy. They can't be treated and they can't be GMOs. But you have to document where you looked to try and find the seed that you did buy. Yeah, and you just said at least 3 sources saying that variety was not commercially available. And as I mentioned before, no antibiotics, and the bigger one for me is no growth hormones in our meat and milk. I don't eat it. My kids don't eat it. My kids have had a very clean life. My eldest son is in Clarkson University right now, and he is hating the food. He's like, I can't wait to come home to eat cooked food. And he wants to get an apartment on campus, but he's a freshman, so that doesn't happen. Like I said before, this symbol right here, and in New York State, you can look for this one. This is the Northeast Organic Farming Association, the organization I work for. This is their seal that you're allowed to put on your product. So before 1992, there was a lot of organic out there, but it wasn't standardized. And through an act of Congress, the NOSP, which is the National Organic Standards Board, was formed, and they came up with a set of definition or definitions for certified organic. A year later, in 1993, there was more than $1 billion in sales. And last year we hit 71.6 billion. 20 years ago, when I started farming on my own, all the farmers I knew at the time were like, oh, it's a fad. And I'm like, well, it's already been around for more than 20 years when I started. Now we're 40 years into it and they still think the same thing. It's a fad. Small organic dairy farms, they're never going to make it. I ship my milk to Organic Valley. They're a $1 billion company. They continue to grow. And in the Northeast right now, it's a great time to be a dairy farmer that's organic because we actually have a lack of milk. So the price goes up. And that's helping me out. So we had mentioned before, Gary mentioned before, some environmental benefits. We don't have chemical exposure on the farm. My animals aren't exposed to it. My neighbors aren't exposed to it, at least on my land. And as consumers, we're not exposed to it on the food. Improve soil health. This one is close to my heart. I am all about soil health. I help, or not help, but I work with folks at Cornell University in New York Soil Health. NOFA New York is a partner with them. We hold field days, really getting to know a lot of folks out there and getting to learn a lot about what is happening. And we know so little. We actually know more species in the ocean than we do in the soil. And we have increased biodiversity. Again, we have farms with hedgerows where, on my farm, over the last 40 years, folks took hedgerows out. I'm replanting hedgerows on my farm to add biodiversity. Reduced energy consumption. We don't have the same soil compaction because we usually have more soil organic matter. We usually use smaller equipment. We don't need the 800 horsepower tractor running across our fields. Smaller equipment, less weight. We have water conservation, again, because of the organic matter. Carbon sequestration, which is close to a lot of people's heart. And two little interesting things. So for every 1% increase in soil organic matter in our soils will hold 20,000 gallons of water. So we have less erosion and we have more drought resistance. Second thing, carbon sequestration. This is the one that hurts me a little bit, but we can fix it. 2/3 of all carbon that was in agricultural soils is now in the air. We used to have 4 to 8 feet of topsoil in the Midwest. There's a lot of places in New York State, if you travel around, you'll see farmers are actually farming subsoil, not topsoil, because it's been eroded. Again, the good news is we can put that back in the ground with organic and regenerative practices, rotational grazing, adaptive grazing, whatever people want to call it, crop rotations, cover crops, manures, just changing. The biggest thing is we need to change what's between farmers' ears. Less energy inputs. Again, that relates back to our ground isn't as hard, it's not as compacted. And lastly, less pollution overall. So there's less soil erosion. So quick side note, I was just at a different talk about certification. Okay. And the woman was working for Soil and Water. She grew up in the Finger Lakes. And she said when she was a child, there was never algae blooms in any of the Finger Lakes. And now it's a yearly occurrence. That is phosphorus leaving the ag lands and ending up in the lakes. And then I will end on this, make it really quick. Gary had mentioned GMOs. Bayer, who bought Monsanto, is looking to get out of the glyphosate market because their lawsuits payouts are around $18 billion. They cannot afford to do it. But the kicker is we have super weeds. I have them listed here. And then the one that really frustrated me when I read this the other day is Bayer came out with a GMO that is tolerant to 5 different herbicides. A couple of these I don't even know how to pronounce. I know glyphosate, dicamba, and 2,4-D are broadleaf weed killers. We don't need more chemical in agriculture. We need less. We need to change our farmers. We need to change our farming system and get away from the commodity system. So there we go. All right. All right. All right. How do I get out of here? Let's see here. I'm not sure either. Okay.
We'll let IT Gary.
Yeah,
IT Gary.
because I don't know how to do it.
Okay, boomer. The boomer.
Thank you.
Sure.
So before I get started on, I guess after listening to two presentations, what's going to be possibly some disappointing information on how we put this into practice. I do want to recognize the fact that Gary said that probably easier for me than a dairy farmer, and I highly disagree. So I grew up in Steventown, New York.
Okay.
My parents were hippie homesteaders. I grew up with cow farms and corn farms. My fiance is fourth generation dairy farmers. That is, the cows don't care that it's Thanksgiving. They don't care that it's Christmas. That's a rough life, and hats off to both of you as farmers, as taking that on. It's not what it was. I mean, I remember 35 different farms in my hometown as a kid, and I think there's maybe 3 now. So hats off to you and what you do, and thank you.
The last dairy farm in our town went out of business on June 2nd, 2025. Yeah.
Dean Foods is a nasty word around Steventown, New York. So I'll talk to you a bit about what we're doing on campus, sort of some of the ways we're trying to help with the healthy eating, some of the things that we'd like to do, and then looking in the future, some of the things that we hope are coming our way as we move along. So we've talked about it 2 different ways now, and I guess I'll add a third of why healthy eating habits matter. First, it's long-term impact, right? We talked about health, poor eating habits. 20 years later, you heard heart disease, diabetes, obesity, all these things we can link back to your eating habits. Brain and academic performance, obviously something we care about deeply here at the university. Nutrient-dense foods are going to improve focus, memory, energy, not the quick fats and the rest, but really dense foods. And diets high in processed foods are linked to anxiety and depression. We know this. The studies are out there. So the more that we can move children away from processed foods, the more we can try and avoid those types of things. Things that are working here at the university, we have a full-time campus nutritionist. That nutritionist is part of our dining program. It's free to all students on a meal plan. And even free to students. We haven't really put that sort of safeguard at the door. If students want to talk to a nutritionist with concerns, Brianna is her name, and she's here for them and has met many times. We do monthly tablings to talk about healthy eating habits. We try and do it in the campus center where students are, to get in front of them and get these ideas in front of them. Everyday salad bars at Fresh Vegetables. We do have allergen-free stations and zones in resident dining to take care of. There's one that takes care of the 9 major allergens. And then we have other stations that take care of those that go beyond that. We try and source local vegetables and meats as much as possible. All of our dairy comes from Ronnie Brook Dairy down in Ancrumdale, New York. So in areas that we can, we certainly do try and add it. Calorie and allergen information is available for as good as that is. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we try and get student engagement as much with things like the Campus Crunch, our sustainability initiative, Marielle and her team. And we try and bring in local partners, local foods, all of that to try and expose our students to the things that are available. The thing to remember about our campus, as most of you know, 80% of our student base comes from New York City. They didn't grow up around a farm. They don't have a farm next door. So if you've ever in your life tried to tell a 17, 18, 19-year-old, hey, what you're doing might be wrong, try something different, it's not the easiest thing on earth to do. So we try and throw all these things at them and do the best we can. Things we can tell you definitely are not working on campus. We have an over-reliance on fried, processed, fattening, sugary foods because they're cheap. We already talked about it. And these are the things that our students are used to. It's what they have come to know. It's their comfort foods, more or less, that they rely upon. We have limited whole grain options. We're serving white rice instead where we should be serving brown rice. We should be serving more legume and bean options, but we're subject to the likes and wants of students, and they want what they want. And if I fill a dining hall with all the things that I know are healthier for them and all that, students are going to push back. Students aren't going to buy meal plans, and then the next executive director can get up to you and talk to you about food as we go. We have high sodium level in soup, sauces, and deli meats. We know that. We've tried to control recipes and try to add that as much as possible. And there's a lack of consistent education, both on campus and off, from the federal government and the rest on how we should be building a balanced diet, how we should be building a balanced plate. The information changes, and we try and keep up with it and try and remind students as it changes. And then finally, the demand for less healthy options is what they want. They want the pizza, they want the burgers, they want the chicken fingers. It's not a bowl of brown rice and legumes that they're looking for. So we're subject to providing them what they're looking for and what they want. How to make a healthy plate, hopefully a reminder for everybody in this room. Proteins, grains, and vegetables. There's all the different stations within the resident dining that they could build these plates if they want to and need to. We certainly didn't say, well, it's not what they want, forget it. We offer these things. I can just tell you that if we polled students on their top 5 choices in the residence hall, they're not going to name off tofu. They're not going to name the legumes. They're not going to name, the protein base, or I'm sorry, plant protein stations that are there. And we even have healthy options within the retail, which students do choose, but it's not their main items. When we look at what are the things that students are choosing, what do we need to provide to attract students to be a part of the meal plan? Making smart choices on campus, learning how to read nutrition labels. I had said it in a previous slide. We put calorie information at them because that's what we're required to do. I have 2 kids in college, and not one of them could tell me what a calorie is, how many calories they should eat in a day. Is 300 calories in this item too much, not enough, a little? Unfortunately, when we talk about that guidance, the guidance is that we need to provide calorie information, but we're not providing nutrition information. So we have to teach students how to read those labels and how to do it. We need to teach them to reduce sodium. We need to teach them to increase nutrients, add those leafy greens, add vegetables in, choose whole fruits over juice. We are lucky enough that as a campus as a whole, for our total beverage spend, I think 45% of our beverage spend is juice. Students buy a ton of juice, but buying a ton of juice is just as much sugar as buying a ton of soda. And it's making that connection, having students understand that as we go. We need to talk to students about not skipping meals. They're college students. Nobody goes to breakfast. Well, they should go to breakfast, and we need to work with them on doing those things. We know within our food service operations, the busiest breakfasts of the year are the first 3 weeks in September, because everybody came to school and wanted to do it right and goes to breakfast, and then they quit. And the first 3 weeks in January, because everybody made a New Year's resolution, and they go to breakfast, and then they quit and they don't do it anymore. So 6 weeks of breakfast is what we serve here. We want them to know the dining staff, get to know the people that are in there, ask questions where they have questions, and consistency. More consistency to your diet, the better it's going to be for them. The role of the dining program, as we see it, we need to provide access to the high quality foods. We need more plant-based and climate-friendly menus. We've added plant-based protein stations to the dining halls. We've added them within the campus center. And then the education piece that comes along with it. That's our responsibility as auxiliary services, is to make sure the items are there and make sure the education's there to go along with it. To walk past a bean stew is not going to tell our students that I should eat bean stew, but when we educate them on why bean stew, and maybe once a day or once a week to switch out meals, then we're doing the job that we're supposed to do. We've added tech where we can, meet students where we are. The more that I can put onto a student's phone, the more that they're going to interact with it and react to it. We've tried to increase partnerships, local farms, food co-ops. We have teaching kitchens and food literacy programs. We bring students together and teach them what to do in their apartment. It's not just ramen 5 nights a week. There's other things that we can do. You can eat on a budget, all those things that sort of I learned in home ec that our kids aren't getting the experience of, we'll try and bring to them. We try and create an environment that makes the healthy choice the easy choice. We put the plant proteins up front. We put, those types of items we want to steer to students to up front. There's still a burger. You can go down the hall to the back and get the burger, but we want to put up front what we're trying to encourage them sort of to try and take and be a part of. The vision, this is the big statement. We want to be a campus that supports where food supports academic success, well-being, and sustainability. It's the one medium where we meet students all the time. They're going to go to that English lecture hall. They're going to go to that math classroom. They're going to go to that STEM science building once, maybe twice a week, but they're going to be in the dining hall up to 19 times a week. So this is truly where we get to students and help support them in what they do. So the call to action here for our students is we want them to be mindful, we want them to ask questions, and we want them to advocate for better options. Again, I'm here to feed students and feed students' wants and needs. So the more students that want and need the right things, the more I can get it into the program and put it out there. For our faculty and staff, we ask you to support initiatives that integrate food literacy into the curriculum, things like Gary's done for a long time here, and department culture, things that Mary Ellen has done, again, for a long time here. Integrating that food literacy, integrating that food knowledge into programs wherever we can. And for our dining partners, we want to continue to evolve to meet the educational needs, nutritional needs. What's next? What's hot? How are we doing things? I am not a big fan of, there was a movement, and I think it was Jerry Seinfeld's wife, that had the movement to kind of sneak vegetables into things so that kids would have it and be a part of. I'm not a big fan of that. Let's meet them up front. Let's be honest with our students. We're trying to educate them here. So let's educate them on why making this choice is better than that choice, and not sneaking them a chocolate chip cookie with garbanzo beans or whatever it was that they were doing. So that's it. I think I made it in under time. And before I step away, I did want to say thank you to Michelle Bowen, who put all of this together. I am not this talented. Michelle took care of all of that for me. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. The next part of the program is yours. If you have an index card and would like to, if you heard something that you have a question about, or if you want to raise or make a point, just pass your cards to Scott and he will pass that over to us, or I guess he's going to choose select questions to for us to respond to. Also, if you have a question that just can't all fit on a card, raise your hand and we're happy to take questions.
Well, I have a technical question. I used to teach air pollution and energy
I know.
economics at Albany. How does organic, you mentioned that you're saving energy on tractors, I guess. Why does an organic farm, how can they get away with using lower power tractors?
So soil compaction is probably the number one use.
And so tilling,
So tilling is a big one, but the tilling, yes, so a plow will make what's called a plow pan, because the plow is sucked down with the
Yeah.
force of
the
having to
tractor,
plow, right?
right.
So that makes what's called a plow pan. Yeah, that's a hard layer. Well, the thicker that can get, the more horsepower you
Right,
need
right.
in order to either break that
So you're
up.
just not digging as deep into the soil when you till. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean,
It's easier to pull through.
it is
the
easier to
soil.
pull through, right? And because the larger tractor also weighs more, that adds another layer of compaction. So think about trying to run a plow through concrete instead of
Yeah,
soil.
that's right. Okay, so you're basically using a lower power tractor that turns over the soil less
Yes.
on an organic farm than you are on a regular farm.
Yeah, again, I mean, a lot of regular conventional chemical farms, I call them, because they can't survive without chemicals. They went to no-till. So they're not plowing.
Yeah, so that's a real low energy use.
But it's
there.
not, because their soil has become so
That's right.
compacted.
Well, that's the reason you till, is to, if that takes energy to till.
Right.
No, and I do remember hearing that no-till. Was that a fad for a while, or is it?
No,
it's still very
real.
popular.
Big deal.
But
It's hard to
that,
do up
that
here.
creates a big
Yeah.
problem, though, I thought, if you're not tilling, this compaction is gonna screw itself, won't it?
It definitely can. So, there are so many things that are wrong in our agricultural system, and how do we fix them on a larger scale becomes the question, because someone who's growing 5 acres of vegetables isn't gonna have the same impact on their ground as someone who's growing 500 acres of grain.
Well, it's funny, in my home garden, my wife has me get out there, and all my neighbors use rototillers.
Yeah.
And I do it with my own back, and it's back-breaking labor. It's awful. I hate doing it, and
You
the
think
hell
that-
with this.
So do you think if you just made a little.
Well, that's what I tell my wife, and she says, no, we gotta turn it over.
Tell her you spoke to 3 farmers.
Yeah.
I said,
So,
wrong.
Don't turn it
a
over.
huge movement right now, at least in smaller scale, up to probably 2-3 acres of vegetable production is permanent raised beds. So you're not tilling the soil.
That's right.
And-
Well, no, she's having me till the raised bed.
Another thing, though, I think in this argument is the fact that in an organic farm, you have more microbial action in the soil.
Yes.
And that microbial action allows more interchange. The compaction doesn't happen with soil that doesn't have microbial action. The compaction happens, I mean, you don't have microbial action.
And the other thing is, we use livestock. Okay, so depends on your soil and depends on the time of year. But, you know, if you're a farmer and you're looking at your soil every single day, you know, when putting sheep or cattle on that soil, it's going to break up the soil and open it up for you. And they don't break it up the same way, you know, a plow does. Well, but if you, there will be other times when they will tamp down the soil.
Well, I think that would be the main effect.
No, not always. It depends. If you can break, for instance, right now, we've got muddy soil. And so when my sheep go through, I just noticed this morning, I've got all these hoof prints in my soil and it's opening up the soil.
But each hoof print is a compression.
It's a compression, but it's
cuts open
open.
the soil going down.
Right, and the beautiful thing is, again, with especially with sheep, is they're only going down maybe
Little
4
bit,
inches,
right.
not even that. We have frost almost every year, that breaks up a
Oh, that
lot of
breaks
that
it.
top layer of compaction.
So-
And
There's your argument for your spouse.
a large one is organic matter. And huge volumes of organic matter, like on my pastures, I'm gonna give myself a little pat on the back here, folks in Cornell couldn't believe. Our lowest level is 8.5% organic matter and our highest is 14.
Wow.
Well, I know, I plow in all our leaves.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And my entire leaves go on one ball, right?
Then what the PA?
No.
Let's take another, a question.
Does it all come from the honey wagon?
No,
No, actually, it's from crop residue. Pasture residue is a big one.
That wasn't a good question. Let me get to that one, sir. Do you have to keep testing the soil due to potential runoff from other local farms?
So on my farm, or is this in certified organic in general?
Both.
Okay, so on my farm, I'm lucky, I'm surrounded on 3 sides by state forest. I'm a hillside pasture farm. So I don't have to worry about runoff coming down from that. I did have an argument with the state forester that logged, marked the trees to log, because once he did that, it changed the hydrology. We now have a lot more water coming onto our farm than we did before, faster after a rain event, because the forest, the trees didn't slow the rain, and there's less roots suck up the moisture, so now we have more water coming onto the farm faster, so it comes, and 2 hours later, most of it's gone. Again, the organic matter holds on to it. On other certified organic farms that are surrounded by conventional farms, usually we have them post on their property lines or on their fields. They have them put up no spray signs, so at least everybody knows. We ask them also to go and talk to their neighbors and say, hey, if you're gonna spray, can you tell me when? Can you make sure the wind's not blowing from your property to my property? And we also have a minimum of a 20-foot buffer. That's supposed to help keep if there's going to be spray residue coming onto your land.
Can I ask a question for somebody in the room who doesn't have gray hair? That's it. So, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but Michael identified a lot of issues. Mostly, kind of the students don't care. If Michael said, I'm quitting tomorrow, but I want this lady to take over my position, how would you get your friends to care and to eat a healthy meal?
Well, I would definitely talk about like the negative health effects that like our food system has. That's probably my main like argument.
Would you do it through TikTok or would you do it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk to them, I'll get both like agree on and like talk to more people in person. Definitely on TikTok, social media. Yeah.
And start sort of a little movement on campus. Very good. Yeah, I appreciate that. What do you think, Mike? You want to hire her?
You know what, honestly, yes, but the question that we struggle with is, I agree, I want to put that information on, I want to put more healthy foods out, but how much more are you willing to pay for your meal plan? If I told you I could get all organic vegetables, I can't do that at the price we're doing now, so there's a give and take, right? And that's where the struggle comes in with with us and our dining partner is we want to do the right thing, but I'm beholden to making sure that.
Do you think food hubs would work? Where, I know Senator Gillibrand was talking about that. She was very interested in that a little while ago, where you can aggregate food and perhaps, it's not quite wholesale, but the farmer is part of an aggregation system that lowers the price for you.
I've used, I think we have one here in the Capital District that we've used, but when I was in Western New York, there was one in Rochester that we used in schools out there, and it does help, because the other issue that comes up is if I have a local farmer that does zucchini and they do great zucchini, we already said I'm feeding 11,000 meals a day, so I'm going to go to that farmer and say I need 3 cases of zucchini, and they're going to give me 3 cases of zucchini. I'm going to use that up at dinner, go back to them tomorrow and say, I need it for dinner tonight. And they're going to say, I'm done. See you next year. So if we can get that into our food system without it going to the Cisco's and US Foods, those areas, yeah, definitely.
This might be heresy in this group here, but have you considered the advantages of genetically modified organisms? So I get that the GMOs have a bad reputation because of glyphosate and the pesticides and all that. I get that. But there's something called golden rice, where they made rice that has the precursor to vitamin A, therefore makes it more nutritious for some people who cannot get their vitamin A delivered otherwise. I'm thinking drought resistance. I'm thinking resistance to parasites or other things that might destroy the crops. So you don't have to spray with pesticide; they're naturally resistant.
So,
Option.
so one, the golden rice has fallen way short on its promise. It does not produce the amount that they said it would. Number two, glyphosate is actually a registered antibiotic, not a weed killer. So it is killing microbes in our soils across the country. And three, and this is a big one, and I'm really trying to push our farmers in New York State towards this, is actually nutrition farming. When a healthy plant has everything it needs, it is resistant to every disease and insect known to attack that species. I did this 20 years ago on my own farm with foliar feeding and trenches. We gave the plant everything it needed, and I ran trials with a SARE grant. The tomatoes that had everything it needed had unbelievable tomatoes, produced abundantly, had great flavor. The ones that weren't treated right next to it had tomato hornworms, fungal infections, other pathogens. So on a larger scale, that's a little more difficult to do, but it can be done. But to go back to GMOs in general, and this is no offense to anybody in this room, we are not smart enough to actually know what all of sequences actually mean. Epigenetics are huge, and we're just starting to understand a little of it. There's thousands of years of evolution in seeds that they've seen way more than we have in 1 year. So what happens when those seeds are allowed to actually express what they have? That's just my opinion.
Sandy, you want to come?
I think that it needs to be pointed out as well that pesticides are neuroinhibitors.
Yes.
And as they go through our food system in our society, we're hearing anxiety issues, we're hearing neuropathy that we had never heard of. And, you know, earlier we heard it, you know, in cancer patients and people being treated for cancer, but, you know, now it seems to be much more prevalent. And I think that we just have to be accountable to what we're doing if we don't have a plan. The other thing is that, and Chris is a perfect example, if you are gonna be a small farmer, you have to have an off-farm job. You can't withstand the cost of health insurance or interest rates. Right now, USDA is hobbled by our government, where if you have a grant that you've been awarded, but the money hasn't been funded, the farmer takes out a bridge loan until the grant comes. But now the grant may or may not come. You're paying the interest on something that would have been a grant and wasn't in your budget. And to wax a little political, it really seems like the family farm has never had a greater threat than it has now. From financial sequestration, the inability of farmers to get money to operate with, and from predatory practices of corporate farms and hedge funds that are looking to make it untenable to be your own farmer now and scarf up that asset. But here's the problem. Hedge funds aren't farmers, and they will strip value. But that's not agriculture. Agriculture is growing, and they're just here to strip value and be another extractive industry. And if we don't develop markets for our local farmers, and our local farmers don't participate in direct marketing, and do this at the community level, the grassroots level, we're going to lose the family farm.
And I think one of the interesting points about regenerative agriculture and family farms is that family farms, real family farms that are not tied to corporations tend to be relatively small farms. They have small equipment and they don't really need big equipment, and they tend to be more likely to use regenerative practices. I saw another hand go up. Yes.
Do you provide recipes for the students that request them?
So I don't know that we've ever been asked for a recipe. I don't know that you want a recipe for some of the items that are in there. But one of the things we have tried to do in the past and continue to do is have students provide us recipes. You know, we talked about our student looks different than who we are. If I gave students the things I grew up on, they didn't grow up in Steventown, New York. So we've asked them to bring us recipes and share with us so we can give them a little bit.
It's a good idea.
What's happened to milk production in New York over the last 10 years? Total pounds of milk produced.
Well,
Gone up, but the farms are going out of business. How is that possible?
you have the small family, DFA is a big one, small family farms and processors, the other problem. Small farms continue to go out, so anybody who's milking less than 100 cows has been going out. And the large confinement dairies that are milking thousands of cows continue to go out.
Okay, but overall production is going up. So when I buy a chocolate shake at the dining halls, that's probably coming right from here in New York, right? Well, you mentioned.
Yeah, Ronnie Burke Farm is incredible.
And yeah, and it's a corporate, it's a huge
Ronnie Burke
facility.
It's 100 cows.
For the whole campus,
Ronnie Osowski has 100.
and it feeds
Or
all the milk
half.
for our campus?
Isn't that efficient?
No, I don't believe that 100
I don't think
cows.
it's, I don't, is
I
it
would
getting
say,
out from
I
somewhere
asked
else?
Ronnie,
Is it all together?
I asked him, yes.
All the dairy use on campus is running?
All the liquid milk that we have on campus, not sour creams and
that's cream like
dairy products, but all the.
Ice
milk.
cream?
I should have said that, liquid milk, some ice cream.
Oh, nobody drinks milk. Everybody drinks all the processed.
I looked on this one of your slides, but how likely is it that regenerative agriculture can produce the yield necessary to feed like 340 million Americans and even 8 billion people globally? Is that possible?
Okay, so
at affordable levels too?
right. At one of the slides that I showed in the last time I was here was a study that had been done at Rodale Institute, where they grew crops on what do you call it, regenerative practices, organic and conventional, using conventional fertilizer, manure, and what's called green manure, which is plant-based manure. And the manure-based crops that they grew and the conventional crops that they grew side by side were equivalent. There's no difference in yield, and not statistically anyway. And in 1 year, I think it was 2016, there was a drought, and the conventionally fertilized plants performed really poorly. The manure and green manure fertilized plants grew even better. What the Rodale Institute suggests is that whereas conventional crops tend to show large variability, interannual variability due to climate and other environmental issues, organic crops tend to maintain a relatively constant level of production, which according to the Rodale Institute is equivalent to conventional. So at least that one institution, which has very good scientists, suggests that the idea that only conventional crops can feed the world is a myth. And we've been feeding the world with mostly organic crops. We didn't call it back like that, call it that back in the 12th century, but we've been doing that for 10,000 years. So, so I would say my money would be on the Rodale Institute.
But you guys buy organic, you can't afford it, right?
We
If you
mix
want,
it into, we can't buy 100%
no,
organic.
what's the difference between organic beef versus regular beef? If you substitute right now, it's gonna be a lot more expensive.
Well, right now beef is so high anyway.
Well, no, irrespective, organic versus non-organic, that
Right.
contradicts
In
your.
a program the
Rossdale
size of
study.
ours, we don't have the financial ability to say, that's it, all beef is organic. So where we can mix it in and say, hey, we
Yeah.
bought this one organic.
Yeah, but
this
it's
one-
a good ribeye steak is $20 a pound now. Organic is gonna be 30 or $40 a pound.
I'd love to be sour.
Not necessarily.
Well, that's
And
what
the big
farmers are
thing is
getting.
right now, the hardest thing right now is trying to convince more farmers to become organic. Because if we can scale,
Yeah,
it'll go down slightly.
Right, yeah.
Not a lot less, but it will come down. Because it does take longer. So if you do grass-fed, grass-finished beef, that alone takes longer than if you put it in a feedlot.
But
Do we
and
want
I
to
don't know that this would work, but I've actually discussed this with Michael's predecessor, Steve Hurst, where what would happen if instead of buying beef from this guy or from Cisco or from wherever you're getting it, you made a deal with a producer. I will buy this many pounds of beef from you every year for the next 5 years. What can you do for on the price? And that nothing, I mean, again, always think about the price of cancer, okay, in any negotiation. But what can you do to stabilize that price? And long-term contracts always work.
Well, that works for organic and inorganic.
Yeah.
They do, but here's the other thing too is unwittingly, the American public subsidizes most crops and beef and
Yeah.
milk.
Farming is subsidized everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but organic is not. The only thing we're subsidized by is we get a reimbursement at the end of the year for 75% of the fees that we pay for certification. So my farm costs $3,000 to certify. Normally I get $1,500 back.
If you're early on your application for a
Right.
refund.
But, so for instance, during COVID, the USDA said, well, some of our farmers are having to dump milk. So we're gonna come up with a GMC dairy margin coverage, basically insurance program. So those large confinement dairies I was talking about before, I'm surrounded by them in the valley.
But you get the same subsidies for milk. Milk has I thought isn't that a nation? That's a really regulated price-wise market, I thought.
But no, in organic, it's not. Organic is set, price on organic is set by the cooperative or the milk company. Conventional milk is set by the USDA.
Okay, I never, okay, so, well,
See, you learn something.
well, no, what it is, so conventional milk is subsidized, you're not subsidized, so that might be a big reason for the price difference.
Yes. And it's not just milk, it's whatever.
Did I say the question back here?
What?
Yes,
I have two questions.
2 questions. Well, since you're a student, you can ask.
So I heard that like corn, it was the first vegetable to be genetically modified, or maybe one of the first, and that was a long time ago. So, like, do you guys know how much of our corn is genetically modified, and how do you guys deal with that?
95%.
Yeah, 95+%, and soybeans is 99%.
2%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're buying tofu, which is made from soy, and it's not organic, you're getting tofu that's been sprayed with glyphosate. The glyphosate, the thing that Monsanto did is they made a soybean that would not die when you sprayed it with glyphosate. So you could spray glyphosate on your field and it would kill the weeds, but soy would ignore it. And so you pick that, you grow that soy, you pick it and make it into tofu and sell it as health food, full of glyphosate. So, yeah.
Isn't that kind of ironic that we are the only species to spray our food with poison so that other species don't eat it and then we consume it?
Did I get that wrong?
Are we doing it right?
What do you think?
It's organic food so expensive. Like, I know that processed food, they like use growth hormones and growth a lot, and that's cheaper, but why, what makes organic food so expensive? It's produced.
It's
Usually small farms, and not always lower yields, but more labor. And labor is expensive, especially in New York State. Minimum wage is $16 an hour. Workers' comp is ridiculous. And again, because we don't have the scale, we had more farmers growing organic. We could get together and sell to Sioux Malvern. And actually, I think talking to the folks at Ag and Markets, didn't the government just pass a law a couple of years ago about 30%?
Yeah,
Has to start being bought by institutions in New York State, so.
So what you're referring to is EO 32, it's Executive
Yes.
Order 32.
Yes.
Which mandated that if you are a state business that deals with food, that we would get to 30% of our buy being food that is grown and processed within New York State.
Right. And I believe it has to be that certified grown in New York State, right?
Grown
and certified, right. So actually Laura Small, from Ag and Markets was telling me that ground beef is their #1 shortfall. And because institutions want that, it's the cheapest cut. But back to that. Organic chicken is expensive because your organic grain is expensive. Same thing with pork.
Tell me, if we could grow and process chicken fingers in New York State, rich.
Processing is the other thing that's really expensive.
Yeah, that's it.
USDA processing adds anywhere from $1.50 to $2 a pound to your overall cost. Well, no matter who you're buying from, local, whether conventional, organic, anybody.
And that's on hanging weight
Right.
of the animal, so it's twice for the product. Because you have a 50% off product. Okay. I wanted to say one thing about the cost of organic. Typically 40% of food that's bought in this country is wasted. And if you don't waste your food and buy better food, A, you probably won't waste it. And B, it'll be better for you. And I asked Joel Salatin when we were at an organic conference, I said, what do you say to people when they tell you your product is too expensive? And he said, I raise my animals with love and respect.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons Pam and I got into the farming is because I think Wendell Berry said it really well. Like, I can't stand the thought that an animal has suffered to feed me. And we feel the same way. And so our animals are treated very well. And, to treat very well means that you don't poison their rumens with grain, which is cheap compared to the $8 a bale that I'm spending on second cut hay. Yep. But it's Paul Radzowitz's hay, and it's really perfect. And that's what my sheep get because they're my sheep. And so, the thing that I found is if I tell my customers the backstory, why am I spending $8 a bale to feed my sheep? Oh, they pay the price gladly. They know we're not going to stiff them. They know that we have to make a profit, and they know. And this is something you can only do on small scale. I can't sell to Whole Foods in California because I can't get to those people and tell them the backstory. but I believe that there's enough of a market among 18 million New Yorkers to tell that backstory. If farmers really want to put in the effort to do that work. That's not why we went into farming to grow things, and most farmers will tell you the thing they like least about farming is talking to people. So,
Animals make a lot of sense.
yeah.
Just a basic question, how does one get the products you both, your farms grow? Like what do you sell it to?
And so mine is organic valley, grass mill line that they have. I shop at one of their computer shop, right? We all have, yeah, okay. And that's a really nice thing about, at least in New York State, the fluid milk is processed in New York State down in Delaware County. And it's mostly milk from the Northeast New York and Pennsylvania that's processed there. So if you buy a grass milk carton of organic valley milk, probably not milk.
And we were on our website, and at farmers markets, we're at the Del Mar Farmers Market. Now we're old and so we are. I can speak here as a member of the Emeritus Center. I'm old. And so we are just working with our mailing list for long-term customers now. And the guy who fixes my tractor buys all of my eggs. So, we've scaled down, but usually if you go to the NOFA New York Organic Farms Directory or the National Farmers Market Directory, the bit of work that you have to do when you go to a farmers market is you have to go around and talk to all the farmers, talk to a bunch of farmers, and you'll know which is your farmer. You'll know, you will like that person, and you'll know you can trust them. And I can't tell you why. That's something that's in our DNA when we just know. Yeah, you can tell who the farmers are who do that, who are feeding their children the same food that they're feeding their.
Any other questions? Well, what I want to say is I learned a very important lesson, speaking with one of our panel members planning this. I happened to look at him and say, I think you're the most half full individual, half full of my glass individual I've ever met. And he looked at me and said, no, we really need to figure out whether we're using the right size glasses. So with that, thank you very much, all three of you.
Eat healthy.
No, I want to get the subsidy.
Yes,
I
Andy, it's a good thing. I didn't.
They're Syracuse.
You guys know.
You're all right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he didn't get a check.
Thank you, Sensei.
On the schedule.
I said, but how does the subsidy eventually?
Thank you, Megan.
How does that actually?
There's cities on the so all the road problems. They're out for
How does that work?
Yeah.
5 and 6. I'm surrounded. It's basically insurance.